I wanna save you, heal you, and lift you up on high. Yes, I do. Heal you, lift you up on high. I wanna save you, lift you up.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Black Men Need Love Too. It's your boy, Dr. Cloud. We are getting ready to kick off our new season, and welcome to our first episode where we talk about the silent struggles of African American men and the expectations that we hold. As many of you all know, I started Black Men Need Love Too almost 4 years ago because I wanted to pay attention to the struggles that we as Black men have, especially with our mental health, stigmatization, and how do we combat it as well. So this episode is very special to me because so often we as Black men have these expectations. If they're not silent expectations, they're loud expectations. And it starts to become a burden to us. It also starts to kind of impede what we're able to do in life. And what I mean by that is we are so focused on becoming somebody else for other people that we often forget who we are for ourselves. And that has its own type of repercussions later in our lives. So when we are born, or depending on what type of family that we're born into, the expectation is that we're Black men. So we are automatically looked at as a threat in this natural world. We are looked at as people who don't have anything or who will be nothing but a threat to those in society. We're labeled as criminals, we're labeled as thugs, all most of the time before we even have a name for ourselves or who we want to be. And the reason why I feel like this topic is so important for us is because as we get older, we start to kind of emulate, or we start to kind of take into our brain or to our mental that all the world is going to see for us that we're nothing but criminals, we're thugs, we're drug dealers, but we were never given the opportunity to figure out exactly what expectations we wanted for ourselves, who we wanted to be in life, and where do we want to go in life. As Black men, we're always told boys don't cry, man up, this is for girls, or, my favorite one is, toughen up. And those expectations kind of build into toxic masculinity, what we talked about before in other episodes, of that toxic masculinity leads into this hyper masculinity as well, of how many girls can I sleep with, how much trouble can I get into, or how can I prove to the world that I'm a man. And those expectations are actually is what's building, not building us, but breaking us down in the long run. When you think about it, when you meet these type of men who are hyper masculine, hypersexual, they are, as we like to say, thugged out, or they have this type of demeanor about themselves that make you say, "Don't question my, my masculinity," is because they have been instilled to have these expectations that this is what a man is supposed to be, but they have never had the chance to ask themselves, "Who am I?" Right? What exactly do I want to be? What exactly is my interest? What exactly do I even love in life? And now we start to wonder, as we get older, or when we finally have the chance, that if I never would have lived by anybody else's expectation, what exactly would I have been, right? Or who exactly would I have been? And it does get to a point, and I see it so often. I see it in practice. I see it when I'm meeting with other Black men as well. That we often are told, well, I wasn't allowed to cook. I was told that cooking was a female trait, right? I grew up in a household full of women. My grandmother always told me that one thing a man needs to know how to do is cook for himself, and also how to bake. Those are two of my favorite passions. Those are two of the things I love to do. I love to cook. I love to bake because cooking helps me relax. When I've had a long stressful day at work, when I'm going through anything, traumatic, and, therapy, I'll always caveat and say that therapy works. But when I'm not able to meet my therapist, my outlet is cooking. I cook a good 4 course meal, 5 course, depending on what it is, because my grandmother allowed me the opportunity to explore, alongside my mother, the opportunity to explore who I wanted to be as a man. Their expectations only was that I go to school, I get an education, I get a high school diploma. Anything after that was on me for me to decide exactly who and what I wanted to be later in life. And a lot of men don't get the expectations. I've had men tell me that, oh, it was expected of me to do sports. A lot of men are not athletic. And I met some men, I have to tell them often, sports is not your skill set. What do you want, right? Or what are the expectations that you have set for yourself? And many of them do not even know. Many of them are often saying, well, I never really sit right there and ask myself the question, what expectations do I have for me? What goals do I have set for my life? Because everybody has been telling me what they want me to be, what they expect for me to be, and what is that supposed to look like. And when it comes to those type of expectations, we start building this anxiety in black men as well. That if I don't excel here, if I don't exceed the expectations here, then I'm a failure. And it goes back into that hyper masculinity, that toxic masculinity of, well, if I don't get into football, or if I don't get into the NFL or the NBA, I'm a failure. My family, I'm trying to get my family out the hood. When we never gave black men an opportunity, or giving them the expectation that you can excel in so many other things. I tell people all the time, for me, we all knew that sports was not anything I was going to excel in. Outside of track and field and baseball, I hated football. I hated basketball. I played soccer. I did golf, but track and field was and baseball were my first two loves. But I knew that I would not excel in those. But my parents and I had the expectation that I needed to excel in those. They just wanted me to have an outlet. And I think as black men, we don't really give ourselves that outlet or that opportunity of having that type of, those type of expectations that we talk about, of saying, what else do you want to do? Who do you want to be? And I don't think we would ask ourselves that question either. Who do you want to be? When I got older and I was able to kind of sit down with myself, through therapy, and especially being in the mental health field, I had to ask myself, what type of man do I expect for me to be? What type of man do I want to be? What does that look like? And how am I implementing that? And I'm just butchering that word, but how am I implementing that faithfully or every day in my daily life? And for me, I just want to be a man that showed up. My expectation was show up every day, be genuine, be honest, and just be you. Don't be too hard on yourself. And when I was younger, I think that was harder for me to kind of have that image of myself, because I didn't want to be like my cousins. I love my father. I didn't want to be like my father, and I really did not have the male mentors that I needed. All I knew was that my parents' expectations were go to school, you know, behave, get a high school diploma, and everything else was on me. My mom, like I said, my mother, and my grandmother, those were their only expectations, and I live by those, because again, they weren't difficult. They didn't expect for me to be a big NBA player or NFL player. They didn't expect for me to, excel in one area of my life. They just expected for me to follow those simple guidelines, and the rest will fall into place. And not many black men have that opportunity, or they have, that family network of saying, only thing I expect from you is these small things. The typical expectations of school, graduate, maybe go to college, go to the career force, the military. Most black men don't have that. They're told, I expect for you to be the man in the house. You're 5 years old and you're being told, I need you to be the man in the house, right? Or, you're a teenager and, you're being told, I need you to get a job because I expect for you to contribute to bills when you're barely in school right now and you're trying to graduate, or being told, I expect for you to focus more on providing for this household than for you to focus on your studies. And again, it just depends on how you were raised in your environment. But those expectations have led to many broken men. They've led to many men that really don't know where they want to be at, or what they want to do in life. And it's one of the most concerning things, and also one of the saddest things ever. Because one of my favorite quotes, and I'm probably going to butcher it right now, is that it is easier to build See, I told you I was gonna butcher it, and that's good because this is real life. That as my friend Douglas, it's easier to build broken men than to build strong ones. And I probably butchered that, and that's fine if I did. But the gist of it is that we so often build up broken men because we believe those men that are strong do not need our guidance. They do not need to be held. They do not need to be loved on. They do not need to be pushed to greater heights because we have seen them uphold so many values, uphold themselves to a standard that we ourselves, I said, oh, he's strong, he can do it, or the expectations that he's strong, he can carry it. And that goes back to those expectations are breaking them down. I've seen many men who have strong men who have cried. You know, they cry when they feel like that nobody's watching because they have had these expectations for so long that I have to excel, I have to exceed. That when those expectations are not being met, like I said earlier, they cry because they feel like a failure versus being told, "Who are you? You know, who do you want to be? What are your expectations for yourself?" And that's one of the things I think we really have to start pushing with our black men is that who are you? Who do you want to be? What are your expectations for yourself? Right. And I think once we start having those vivid or those real conversations, um, it makes for a very transparent opportunity. It allows that man to sit down and say, you know, I've never been asked that question, or I've never been asked, what are the expectations for my own life? Who do I want to be? What does that look like I said earlier, my expectations for myself that I've gotten older is be honest, be honest, show up, and be the best person I could possibly be. And I'm not gonna say that I get it right. I don't. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. I'm not. You know, in my personal relationships and in my private relationships, I try to be, or I try to set the standard that I'm honest. Sometimes it's hard for me to be honest, because I have fear of the repercussions that's going to follow with my honesty. And I've never been one to express my emotions. I was never expected to express my emotions. And so when I got old enough and I started realizing that I needed to tell you how I felt, it was the only way I was going to get to where I was going to be at. That's when I realized, okay, I have an expectation for myself personally. I need to start telling people, how do I feel? Because if I don't tell them, then how can I expect for them to work with me or to navigate alongside of me, to a place of healing or a place of understanding me or, mutual grounds. My prior relationship, um, that was one of my biggest expectations of my prior relationship is that me and my significant other, I won't say we were perfect because we weren't. I'm not gonna say that we had it together all the time because we didn't. But I always tried to be honest. And I always laid the groundwork that the expectations for me is that I will always be honest. You can ask me anything, I tell you whatever. I never tell you a lie because I would rather give you an opportunity to know the truth and figure out what you want to do with the truth than to tell you a lie and take the opportunity away from you. And it worked, to an extent it worked. And sometimes it didn't work because my honesty was one of those things that we didn't know how to navigate sometimes. It took us a while. And I think that with black men, that goes back into those expectations that what is your expectation for yourself? Who are you? What do you want to be? And like you said, who are you? Who do you want to be? Because we don't ask ourselves those questions. And I'm going to repeat that often, in this episode because who are you? Sit down with yourself or sit down with the black man in your life, whether it's your son, your brother, or uncle, your father, your grandfather, any black man in your life, and ask them, what are your expectations for yourself? You know, and encourage them, push them, because they may not have ever had the chance to actually sit down and think about it. One of my favorite films is Moonlight. And in the Moonlight, and if you watch probably episodes, I probably mentioned Moonlight numerous times, but in Moonlight, the main character Kevin and Sharon, Kevin and Sharon are in the kitchen, and Kevin asks Sharon, "Who are you?" Chiron says, I'm me. He said, man, no fronts, you know, you trapping. That's just not who I expected. Well, what did you expect? And I love that scene for a reason because it goes back to what I've been saying this whole time. The expectations that we have for other men versus the expectations that we have for ourselves are always different. And that scene showcases that Kevin thought expectations for Sharon was completely different than the expectations that Sharon had for herself. Because when Sharon got in trouble, he built himself hard. He thought that was the only way people would not mess with me. He started trapping. He started trapping. He started slinging drugs. You know, he was doing everything that he originally in his youth was trying not to be. He had a black male figure in his life who, yeah, he may not have been completely perfect, but he was the father figure that he needed who allowed him to be himself and did not have any expectations, but for him to be a kid, for him to be Sharon. Or in that movie, when he was a kid, uh, for him to be Blue. You know, he goes from Blue, he goes to Black, then he goes to Sharon. And so I use that clip, and I'm gonna try to insert that clip if I can at the end of this episode, because it showcases that so often when we ask somebody that question and we give them the chance to fully think about it, they don't know themselves. And I love telling my friends, "Who are you, Sharon?" That's my favorite thing to say to my friends. "Who are you, Sharon?" And they laugh at me, but it's a true question. Who are you? Like, what are your expectations? What do you want to be? And as we're getting older, as I'm getting older, I think I'm really am focused more on that whole what does my life look like, or what are my expectations for myself in the next 10 years? Not the expectations set by society, not the expectations set by my friends, my families, my significant other. What are my expectations for myself? And are they expectations that I'm setting for myself because I want better for myself, or because I believe that I need to showcase something completely different? And I realized that the expectations I'm setting for myself because I want better for me. Not for anybody else, but for me. My expectation is I want to be a father. I want to be a husband. You know, those are my expectations, not because society says so, because I know that those are the two things that I desire in my life, and those are the two expectations that I set for myself. I'm not hard on myself if I don't become a father. I'm not hard on myself if I don't become a husband, but I just know that those are two things that I would love to be in life, and those two things that I expect for myself to be in life, God willing, and I have a mighty God. God willing is what I hope for. So to wrap this episode up and not to belabor the point, take time out, ask the black man in your life exactly who are you, who you want to be, what it says for yourself. Encourage them that it's okay to not know. You know, if you have younger sons, speak life into them. Let them know that they're not required to know everything right now. They're not required or expected to be the man in the house. The only thing they're expected to be is a kid, a young black boy trying to grow into a young black teenager, into a young black man. That's all they need to be right now. You know, encourage them. And on the expectation that I would say is encourage them to get an education. You know, even if college is not in their goal, encourage them. Just get your high school diploma and find what you love in life. The expectation is for you to live, it's for you to thrive, it's for you to figure out exactly who do you want to be. What do you want to be in life? What do you want to go in life? What are your expectations for yourself? And when you have those conversations, I promise you, you will see that black man open up to you in a way that you never imagined. So just speak life over him, speak life into him, speak. And this doesn't just go for, like I said, the older men in your life. This goes for the younger men in your life as well. My little brother, who I call my son some days when he's getting on my last nerve, I always tell him he could be anything he wants to be. And my only expectation for him is to behave. That's it. Behave. Because he is 9 going on 16 and he think he just got it all figured out at 9 years old. But that's my heart. And I always tell him you could be anything you want to be. You don't have to be like me. My expectations are for you not to have to be like me. Yes, you may have an older brother who has accomplished so much in life and who has set a standard for you. But my expectations is you don't gotta do what I did. You don't have to get multiple degrees. You don't have to. Oh wait, I finna lie. He do gotta be a Kappa. I'm sorry. If he go to college, he gotta be a Kappa. I'm only paying for Crimson and Cream. That's it. Um, but other than that, he doesn't have to get multiple degrees. And if he decides that college may not be his first choice, the military, trade school, it's because he set the expectation for himself. It's not because he looked at me and thought that the expectation was that he has to be like me. I don't ever want him to believe that, and he never will believe that. My expectation is just for him to behave, to live his life, to be a young black man, and to figure himself out as he gets older. I think my little brother's gonna be phenomenal when he gets older. He's smart. He's able to articulate himself. When he's not been a Sour Patch kid, he is one of the most lovable kids ever. And I know that inside of him is so much potential for greatness. And that as he gets older, he's gonna see his own expectations and know exactly who he wants to be. And I'm gonna be there every step of the way to guide him, to push him into his expectations, into his dream, into what God has set for him, not what I had planned for him. Outside of Kappa, to reiterate that, if he do go to college, that's my own expectation. That's another expectation. He can only pledge Kappa. If he come home trying to pledge anything else, my bank account is closed. I don't got no money. And if it's Kappa, I got a few funds set to the side already, just in case. But if it's anything outside of Kappa, I don't got no money. I'll be at the probate with his picture saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to be, because I'm their childish. But other than that, he's gonna do phenomenal. So continue to pour into the black men in your life. Continue to let them have their own expectation, and continue to let them know that they don't have to be hard or they don't have to listen to what the world wants them to be. You don't gotta be a trapper. You don't gotta be an NBA star, NFL star. You don't have to be a rapper because first of all, not everybody's meant to be a rapper. I can't rap to save my life. Outside of one fish, blue fish, two fish, and I probably messed it up. But the expectation is be who you want to be, and if you have a talent for it, nurture it as well. Thank y'all for joining me for episode 1. I look forward for y'all joining me for episode 2. As we're trying to get back into the swing of things, I'm really looking forward to more of these episodes. I'm looking forward to having guest speakers as well, and I'm also looking forward to just continue these conversations that we've been having over the last 4 years. I don't know if season 4 will be our last season, but I do know one thing that the mission of Black Men Need Love To has never changed, and that is to promote mental health awareness in Black men around different topics, and also to promote and to reduce stigmatization in mental health services. June is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So continue to actually June is National Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think I probably got them backwards. But regardless, we are in National Mental Health Month. Please continue to encourage people to reach out for mental health services if they need them. Continue to encourage the Black men in your life to utilize therapeutic services and to always reach out to those that they love or to curate a safe space. Shout out to my safe spaces, my mother, my grandmother, my siblings, my Heart and Human Form, also my best friends, and anybody else who I have built trust with over my life, who I allowed to see the authentic me and not the old me, the one that I kept guarded. So this is episode 1. Episode 2 will launch right after this in about the next week or so. Also, check out our merch shop at Bonfire. The link is in our bio for Black Men Need Love Too. I look forward to having these conversations. And if you want to be a guest speaker, hey, reach out to me, hit me up. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a lot of different conversations, a lot of different topics, all tied into one. But at the end of the day, to leave you all with a closer is that the expectations that you have set for yourself are not the expectations set for Black men. Allow Black men to explore. Allow them to figure out exactly where life is taking them, and allow them to know that they can be anything that they want to be, and that the only expectation that they have is what they set for themselves and not what society says for them. And to the end, love a Black man, hug on a Black man, and continue to encourage Black men. This has been Black Men Need Love Too, episode 1 for season 4. And this has been your boy, Dr. Cloud. I look forward to seeing y'all all again in
Who is
episode
you,
2.
man?
Until then, have a good one.
Who, me? Yeah, nigga. You. Saying, man, them fronts. That car. Who is you, Sharon?
I'm me, man. I ain't trying to be nothing else.
Oh, okay, so you hard now.
I ain't say that.
Well, then what? Hey, I ain't trying to hem you up, man. It's just, I ain't seen you in a minute, and it's not what I expected.
Well, what did you expect?